right.
Hello, everybody.
As you're used to in our podcast, if you could let us know first how you can hear both of us.
Hopefully well enough.
Yes.
Testing 1, 2. Well, it'll be some time before we've got a little bit. I'll try and practice not being so self-conscious of my condition.
It is, yes. I will try to be more understanding about it.
Let's see. Hello, love oddities. Post fragment, Eleazar. Audio seems okay.
Excellent.
Happy days.
Faith would be pleased.
Almost happy. It could be better.
Perfect. So I thought that Chris did a smashing job coming on and telling you all sorts of Sun Sky secrets, but why stop there and let's have more writers come on this week. So Cash is joining us today, and James will be on a bit later too. But I think you have some new region stuff to tell us about.
Yes, so we're going to be talking about Eleutheria or Eleutheria. I'm again really struggling with that one. Sorry. But, massive echo. Echo, echo, echo.
That's weird. I wonder if it's because I'm talking into the pipe.
I certainly don't know.
I can do that. All right, well, Cash is going to be talking mostly now anyway, so hopefully
all right,
my
well,
echo will
I'll
fade.
do that then. So we want to talk a bit about Eleutheria. Specifically, I'll be talking more about Pan, the new region, the new capital of this area. James, when he comes along, is going to be discussing the ports you might find. But I want to talk about Pan, do some setup of what players will be able to do there, what the story is going to be like, and go from there. So in Pan, this is a place of cypress trees, of moonlight, of marble statues. It's going to be something that comes out of the Victorian understanding of the old Greek bacchanals. I don't know why I said in there, but I don't think it belongs there. I think it just came out like a spider out of my throat. Halloween and all.
They have that happen. Yeah.
Anyway, as it was place of moonlight, place of strangeness. This is where the liberation of night is in full effect, as it were. This is where the laws just aren't in operation. The judgment of the region, known as the Halved, about which there are some very interesting things that the player can learn, will not be enforcing its laws as laws are often enforced throughout the universe. So death, for instance, is, as it is underneath, not operational.
Nice.
We have a number of people are stopping by to gawk at my horrible condition here, and I certainly don't appreciate it. But you'll be able to witness a number of strange things about this society. This is a society where the rules and laws that we're certainly accustomed to are entirely broken down. It's a question of how they keep together, work together better than I do with this rubber hand. No, a spider didn't bite it. My hand just turned into rubber, terrifyingly. It's just I have a rubber hand now, and I have to live with it.
We've seen it before in this office, but it struck again.
Yeah, my rubber hand, horrible condition. I don't think we've seen it, but
very hard to type, I imagine.
It certainly is. It certainly is very, very hard to type. But as I was saying.
Oh wait, and I was.
Please, yes.
Could you explain to people that are not familiar with Liberation of the Night what that is?
Yes. So the Liberation of Night is revolution in its most fundamental sense. I think that's a safe way to put it. The universe is governed by laws, of course, and this is a rebellion against those laws. This isn't the rebellion against a king. This is a rebellion against what is, So the stars have established an order throughout the universe, and the liberation of night seeks fundamentally to undermine that established order and to allow free reign for purposes that the player will be discovering as they go along. The Liberation of Night is older than players might have thought if they thought it was just something born out of the anarchistic movements of the Victorian era. But the sun here again is shining. It's part of the liberation, I believe we've said. And things are very strange here. Since the sun is dark, you don't have light. You don't really have a way to keep track of time. So instead in Pan, what they do is there's an adamant idol that you can approach, but try as you will, you can't reach it. It's always far away, and it constantly issues a piping, a music that is interpreted by one of the groups in the port. Their name slips me by now, but the brazen group.
Maybe Chris will fill them in. So.
They are interpreting this piping as what hour it is. So the piping determines the hour. Do you have an hour of slumber now? So it's sleep time. Do you have an hour of oaths? The Brazen Brigade. Thank you, Chris. Or the hours of oaths, where you can go ahead and make deals, make promises. Do you have the hours of endeavors or any other host of things? Likewise, you have the questions of how are deals made? How do people function? You have to have some kind of baseline, and the only reality tends to be the one that folks can agree on. It can be difficult, but when you make an oath, when you make a bargain, that is sacrosanct. If nothing else is sacrosanct in Pan, then what you promise to another, what you establish to another through certain rituals, certainly is. Likewise, of course, it's a big haven for smugglers. Illegal goods come in and out because it's a safe space.
A nice dark safe space.
A nice dark safe space where people with rubbery appendages like mine own, though I shouldn't really joke about it, really is a tragic condition and not the thing of comedy.
Certainly not something we'd make food out of.
I should certainly hope not. I mean, this is not very good. This is all rotten. It's terrible, and it tastes like latex. Weirdly enough. But yeah, this is, I think, perhaps most interestingly of all, a port. So oftentimes you can have in Albion and in the region where we've written before, quests you perform in other parts of the region will open up more things in the world, more things in the port, I believe. Whereas here, the things you do in the world, I think I got that backwards. In other regions, what you do in the hub, in the capital, will open up more opportunities. But here, what you do elsewhere will open up more opportunities and make it a more expansive place where you can continue to delve into its strangeness, its weirdness. As well, one of my favorite parts is Winter's Reside, which is...
I imagine that would be my favorite part as well, as you very well know.
Well, it's not quite what you might be imagining. It's not a place of cold and of snow and of nice warmth against all of that, but rather it's a home for those who you get invited there after London or after just the laws, as it were, have really gone ahead and done a number on you. It's a place of respite for those who have been most maligned by the order, either of London or whatever else have you. I think the story there is quite nice, and I'm going to be interested to see how all of it turns out. It's really a wonderful place. Of course, though, they do have a figurehead. Everywhere's got to have one,
of course.
I suppose. But here you have the Cypress King, who once the certain hour is called every day, the king must accept all comers, all challenges, and if they are beaten in this, then, sad to say, they lose their title. Whatever else happens to them, but someone else becomes king, and then they go from there. Yeah.
When you were talking about how, since there's no sun, they rely on music to sort of
Sure.
Show them, what they should be doing with their day, so to speak. Is that regular, or, for example, have people been thrown into chaos because?
Well, I mean, of course, none of it's regular. Regularly, you have the sun coming up, going down, or spin around and round. So how do you mean?
So could, for example, one time of day go on for quite a few days?
I imagine so. I mean, it sometimes feels like that anyway, and
That's
you have
true.
life. If
Very
you
true.
want to get, that's not really this something. But yes, if you have any questions, I think you were going to call James in a few minutes, but I've rambled at some length, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Yeah.
Or do you have any? Or
I'm not sure if I'm still echoey, but please ask Ash any questions that you may or may not have.
I'm always happy to do what I can.
And it could be about the Reach too. It doesn't necessarily have to be about Eleutheria.
Or Albion, or
Yeah.
anywhere else in the game.
Or you could ask him to sing songs. Totally fine.
Oh, I wish I didn't have a rubber arm.
Excellent. I hope
Would
to
be
have that on CD next week.
be nice. The Lay of the Pumpkin. Yeah, I'll get the fish and chip shop down below to climb up out the windows and throw me in the fryer singing.
So is there any sort of different factions involved in Eleutheria or Albion? I think.
So let me think of the best way to play this. As I suggested before, politics is ever constant, ever present. So while London is extending its power out into the world, you will see manifestations of that throughout, as far as it impacting the world state, which is what you have with the tackies and the stovepipes.
Yeah.
I cannot confirm at this time how exactly that's going to work, but there's some interesting things.
Yeah, there's probably a technical element to go along with all the stuff that you guys
Yes.
write. So.
Yes, there's always tech involved, as well as politics. You can always expect death, taxes, politics, and mechanics in your games informing your stories. And again, all of that is subject to change, however much we get into any particular aspect of the gentlemen, who are the smugglers, the neo-nocturnals, who are the artistic group that hold sway over whenever an oath is broken, it goes to them, and they make the decisions on punishments and rewards.
I don't know if I want artists figuring that out for me. I imagine they're very creative.
Gotta be creative in your punishments and your rewards.
And what sort of, you said that Pan is the sort of place that's how Victorians interpreted the Greek culture in that sort of time period. So what other instances would players see of that?
Well, I think if you look at the Bacchae specifically, that'll probably be it. It's not necessarily the Greek as much as it is perhaps the pagan, specifically through that lens.
Gotcha. Cool. So hopefully my mic is working because I can answer this question. We are hoping to put out something next week. That will be our first feature update to the game. And we're debating which chunks are going to go in at the moment, so we can't tell you exactly what they are, but there will definitely be an update to features next week. And then I imagine we'll be bug fixing all the time. I'm looking at our producer and she's nodding, so that's good. And then, of course, there's a lot of other big features that we're going to be adding in soon. Obviously, everybody's looking for character creation and trade, and we've been talking a lot about economy and how to make it easier for people to earn money. So, yeah, hopefully very soon you will see something. And we'd be sure to announce it on all the channels when we put a new feature build in. So hopefully that answers your question.
It's going to be super exciting. I've been seeing some of the things we've been doing with, as you said, the character creation most particularly is what I'm excited for. And once the economy gets to critical mass, it's going to be it's going to be good fun, I'm sure. Is there any other questions? What regions are the Scorn Fruits going to be in exactly? Well, I'm not sure. Can't think I can say on that right now. Are any Americans trying to muscle in and plunder the skies?
Besides Cash and I'm not sure.
Well, Americans. Have I ever put in an American? I know I've got Americans in before, or at least in Dream Visions. I mean, you can't really. I mean, London's pretty much won right now, so it'd be hard luck taking them down. But if anyone could do it, American ingenuity and good American stock be the way.
As represented right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely, if they do get into the game, we can look to Cash.
I certainly hope so. I think there might have been one. I think James might have written one, but I can't remember. I might have made that up.
We'll blame him anyways. I was going to say, since you're excited about character creation, is there an
American option? There should be.
No. Do you have a name in mind or like a character in mind that you would create already?
Oh goodness.
Or is there like something you stick to?
Not right now. Typically, I try and move away from the last character I made, but it's always been the case that the last character I've made has been charisma based, and I've never gotten away from them. So I've tried.
Your pathological charisma.
I try so hard, but I think, I'd rather just sit and do a little dainty etching of a flower than, have been broken in the streets and have my bones made of cobble, but...
Well, your bones are made of rubber now, so where did that get you?
Okay, wow, that was super insensitive. I thought this was... okay. I'm doing my best here, and we're making jokes about something that's traumatic and fresh. That's hard. Well, if there are no more questions, then I guess I can go get James.
I guess you're free.
Yeah, after that.
Yes, please don't tag before you.
Bye, everybody. Some thoughts and prayers and trick-or-treat candy would be appreciated to help this. And I'll go get James. Pleasure as always, and see you in the... Final jumps.
Welcome, James.
Oh, this is new. How's it work?
All right, so I think this is the one that's actually working as well. So if you click that to your lapel, you should be good to go.
Hi.
I was just terrified, so I'm taking a moment here.
Well, how trick or treat? Do we get trick or treat?
I got a trick. Not a treat.
How do you think I feel?
Yes, let us welcome James. It's great to have you, especially with these mics working, because they make things a lot easier.
Yes.
Of course, as stated when Cash was on, if you guys have any questions for James, please just shout them out, but it's very helpful if you could put the @Failbetter games in front of it so we can see it. Ooh, that's very sinister.
Yeah. Real piercing eyes.
We can't ever escape flute talk, so that will always be there. But Cash filled us in on a bit of what he's been working on in Eleutheria, although I also have trouble with that name.
Eleutheria.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a long U.
We'll let the British say it, because I don't think we are fond of long vowels. But what have you been working on? And it doesn't have to be Eleutheria if you've been doing stuff with Albion or...
Yeah, I'll start with Albion. I've been working on discoveries in Albion. These are things, if you played Submariner, that you'll find kind of going in between ports. As you're sailing around, you'll see in Submariner, it's like a shipwreck or kind of a big bomb, and you go and investigate and there'll be a little bit of content. And you get rewards or something horrible would happen or both. So we're bringing that into some of the skies. And the Albion ones are a little bit more, I think, outre than necessarily in the Reach, where they're all kind of homesteads and things.
Yeah.
So the two I've been working on, there are Bully's Acre, or Bully's Acres, which is, we've been talking about death a lot, and how people die in the high wilderness. And if you're rich, you'll probably be buried or interred in the Most Serene Mausoleum, which is the Victoria's sort of monument to Albert in the skies. You might not necessarily be legally dead if you go there, but there are complexities.
All right.
But if you're not particularly well off and you die, then you're sort of cast off into the sky in sort of a reinforced coffin and left to sort of float about the wilderness. And so occasionally you come across these little drifts of coffins floating by, and you can investigate them.
As you do.
I mean, or you can sort of say your respects and kind of watch them from your windows float by, or you can go and have a bit of a fertile, and you might find some interesting things that have been buried.
But interesting doesn't mean good necessarily to
I mean,
your well-being.
interesting means interesting.
All right.
So that's one thing, and the other one is obviously Albion's been pretty complicit in messing about with time.
Yeah.
And possibly as a result of this, there are these shivers in the sky, wefts of unraveled time, which you'll see a kind of just a slight distortion. And as you approach, time's gone all funny. Not like kind of time traveling back to the future sort of way, but you might find kind of half your crew is kind of partially somewhere in the future, kind of trying to make out allotments in the galley, while the other half has kind of regressed to infanthood. Just still kind of, you can interact with them, nothing's physically changed, but they're elsewhere. And you might be able to see your own grave, rob it, that kind of stuff.
Excellent. I feel like quite a few of our fans will enjoy that feature particularly.
Yeah, it's very, very out there. But that was super fun to write. It's not gone through Chris yet, so that is very subject to change.
The higher power that is Chris in...
yeah, he might be kind of the other end of this, kind of going, you did what?
Well, I'm sure he'll speak up if he thought differently. And those discoveries that you just mentioned, are those just the ones, are those specific to Albion, did you say?
Those are specific to Albion. We will have other ones for Eleutheria. I'm trying to think of a couple. There's Crossroads, which I'm quite excited about.
Yes.
So the judgment of Eleutheria is a power of kind of ways and measures and distances. And when it was sort of working as intended, these crossroads were like waypoints through Eleutheria. You can kind of travel from one to another, sort of almost like a fast travel system in Skyrim, but much more kind of rarefied and less mechanical than that sounds. Yeah, random encounters are coming in soon. But because they've been kind of left to rot, they're all kind of fragmented, and so you can go to one of these crossroads and they're like groves or kind of a stake in the ground, and you'll see kind of, if you stand at one, you can see Pan's really close, or Piranesi's just right there, you can travel between them. Or occasionally there's someone there, like one of the messengers, a servant of the judgment, and they like to make bargains. Bargains are sacred in Eleutheria, and they might kind of help you out, if you need fuel or something, or you're running low on supplies. And they will always, they'll treat you fairly, but they'll always collect, and not always at the most appropriate time.
I already feel cautious about what you just said.
They're fine, they're lovely.
Sure they are, until they hunt you down.
Hunt. They progress at a stately pace.
And, Joe, I'm trying to remember, are discoveries in the Reach yet?
We have written them. I don't think they're in the current version.
I didn't think they were, but I was just checking before I said. Because one of our fans was saying it'd be nice to see them as you're exploring. And what is it like to work on the discoveries? How do we go about creating them? Are there like prompts or?
I mean, I mean, the Weft of Unravel time was an exciting one because that was just a shiver in the sky times weird. And then Chris and I spent kind of a lot of time thrashing kind of out. So, okay, we said this weeks ago, what does it mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's more kind of like homesteads in the Reach, which are homesteads that you can kind of go in and see how people are living or if they're abandoned, are a lot more straightforward. But writing them prose has to be short because they're repeatable. You might see the same thing a few times and you'll need it. You don't want to kind of have to read a kind of great glob of text every time you encounter it. And they have to be random and they have to be interesting, but not too specific that the player feels, well, that's not my story. Mike Rimmer wouldn't do that. I don't have a first officer at the moment, so I can't include them in that way. But they're kind of just little short, sharp vignettes that we use to kind of add texture to the world, kind of explore some mysteries, hint at things, generally do some kind of background world building.
Excellent. So I think having been in a few pitch meetings sometimes, or is that where they originally kind of come out from?
Yeah, when we kind of do our pitch, our kind of region pitches, we'll have like a spreadsheet, a PowerPoint to fill out, and there's kind of a section for discoveries, and we'll all kind of get to the meeting and pitch along with ports and the region story. We'll pitch a bunch of discoveries and then kind of pick the ones that kind of fit together.
To all fit into the general sort of atmosphere, since each region is so different. Cool. Besides the discoveries, have you been doing any sort of port work or?
Yeah, I mean, we're just ramping up Eleutheria at the moment, so I've not started any, but I can talk about a couple of them.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's the House of Rods and Chains.
Always exciting.
Yeah, which if you've played Submariner and encountered a certain eye in Submariner, you might be familiar with some of this. And it's this kind of vast labyrinth full of kind of weird rooms and polyps, which is a lovely word.
I was going to say, I'm already grossed out.
It's kind of a combination of some of the kind of most alien stuff that I think we've done and some of the most familiar. There's like soup kitchens and the amber pits, and you can meet Mr. Barleycorn, which would be exciting for everyone involved. And I go to the quivering kitchens, and you might meet some rubbery elements, who can say?
We've already met some rubbery elements here today on this podcast, so I'm sure that everybody will be very excited about that.
Differently horrifying rubbery elements.
Well, they're always horrifying, though, aren't they?
But sad.
But well loved by our fans, I would say.
Yeah, so I think fans of rubbery will be very satisfied with the House of Rods and Chains.
Excellent.
And for some of the deeper mysteries in Eleutheria. It's a fun kind of, like, a big theme of Eleutheria, kind of crossroads of meeting points of different elements kind of working together and fusing into kind of weird appendages. So
another great word. And we've already covered this a bit, but how would you say, like, how would you describe the region of Eleutheria compared to something like Albion or something like the Reach that fans are more acquainted or can have a better idea about?
It's weird. It's a lot more out there than any of the others so far, I think. But I think we have a very strong aesthetic for it and a tone, kind of grounded in, as we've been saying, a kind of Victorian 18th century kind of depictions of the classical world, but thrown to the kind of far-flung madnesses of the imaginations of that. A big inspiration for that has been Swinburne's poetry. He was kind of a decadent poet of the 19th century. He wrote kind of sort of frothing verses about Persephone and really kind of overheated stuff. That is kind of been a kind of good map to chart Eleutheria with.
Nice. See, you're already excited about the rubberies. So, question, how important can discoveries be? So I assume that's more about like how it affects you and how greatly it could affect a player.
Yeah, I think fairly, like the terror is something we use a lot in discoveries for various reasons. Can have effects on your crew. You might kind of find kind of a useful resource there, or you might find kind of a nightmare you'll never forget. So they are kind of intended not as they are just way stops on your journey rather than the destination itself. But they're intended to kind of add complexity or change up how you're playing. You might find something that's kind of, oh, I found that good. There's a port I know accepts it, and you'll go somewhere else completely as a result of going to one. They're little twists, I think.
Okay. Excellent way to describe that. That just reminded me of another question, because I know spectacles also are not in.
No.
Would you be able to describe the difference between spectacles and discoveries, or is that another question for another person?
Someone could definitely do a better job than me. My understanding of them, and Lottie will probably scream if I get it wrong, is discoveries will have content attached, whereas spectacles are kind of big, exciting, or small scale kind of things that tell the story of the region in a different way visually, and doesn't need you to kind of sort of read anything to understand. I think is how I would describe that. Lottie's giving me a kind of, you don't have to die.
Yeah, you didn't.
You can live.
That's fine. Please send us your questions. Anything about skies, especially. It's really nice to always have writers here, because basically as soon as we invite somebody onto the podcast that isn't a writer, we get all the lore questions and the content questions. So ask now.
I can talk about a couple of the other ports.
Yeah.
And we talk about 3 at the moment outside of Pan. There's Piranesi, which I was surprised got in. Like when we talked about Eleutheria ages ago, like we just kind of threw out a bunch of ideas. Like this is way before even the proper kind of sit-down pitch meeting.
Yeah.
And I was looking at these images by a guy called Piranesi. He's like an 18th century Italian artist, and he has these amazing kind of etchings of like Rome, and it looks completely different because it's Rome in the 18th century, and it's all falling down kind of vast, like, to borrow Lovecraftian word, cyclopean architecture.
Yeah.
And then he does carceri, which are prisons, but these kind of vast, almost Escher-esque, impossible prisons that kind of extend forever, or kind of huge bridges or soaring arches. Those are really cool, and I thought I'd kind of build a prison port out of that. And when we were kind of picking kind of what do we want to take forward to the pitch meeting, Adam picked Piranesi, which surprised me. Because I was kind of, I'll take it if no one else will, I'll make sure it gets in. Yeah, sort of very English kind of sound of, no, it's fine, you can pitch this one. And no, it's like what's done with it is really cool. So it's a prison that still has some of the light of the judgment in it that's attached to the prisoner's arms. And you can leave the prison technically any time.
Yeah.
If you change from what you are, if you're willing to kind of leave some of your identity behind, become different, then you're free to go.
That sounds horrifying.
Yeah. And so you wander through all these kind of rooms and find kind of the cast of someone's like kind of sloughed off snake skin of lives lost, like a chaise-longue or a spinning wheel, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think Piranesi is really cool.
Proper pronunciation of that as well.
And the final one I can talk about, and I can't pronounce it, is Caduceus? Caduceus?
I don't even think I've seen this spelled out yet, so I certainly cannot help you with the pronunciation.
Caduceus. Thanks. Which is very Oracle of Delphi. There's a kind of temple on a kind of black glass height. And there are kind of these wonderful festivals going on inside. There are these miraculous roses that only appear sometimes, and some have a gem or a kind of fond memory in, or just a scent that you've never smelled before. And kind of obviously Bohemians love this stuff. So it's a huge kind of attraction for them almost, kind of part attraction, part kind of spiritual, ritual experience.
Yeah.
It's tended by the Fawn Maiden, who gives out kind of oracular prophecies, and occasionally there's sunlight, light filtering through on these roses. And obviously devils love roses. So they're tending them and kind of looking after the Fawn Maiden. And the player can go and interact with this setup. And someone called the drummer, who is in the deep of the port somewhere. You're not quite sure who he is or what their agenda is. And so yeah, it's this kind of just fascinating mystery. And occasionally people disappear. But, they get to smell amazing roses, so that's the price you pay.
Presumably, I would imagine people disappear from Eleutheria a lot, though.
Yeah, and they turn up somewhere else. They're fine, not different. Or maybe they are different.
That's true. Very true. Which out of not just the ones that you've been working on, but which is like, is there a particular port that you like best out of Eleutheria so far, or one that intrigues you the most?
So ones that they're getting 12:15 from Warlock Street flashbacks. Yeah, I may have wrote that one. And I'm excited for Cutisius very much. And actually Piranesi, like, I'm just in love with the concept Adam's come up with for it. It's just so elegant. And I think there are so many kind of interesting possibilities and stories we can tell. And not just of the port, but we can kind of huck in stories from all over the game and kind of just have them kind of play out there or have it be of importance.
Looking at our question. Yes, I mean, you could talk about this better than I can, but I know that the Reach is the frontier land, so it's the area of the game that Victoria and London haven't been in as much as other...
No, I mean, it's not, as Cash was saying, devoid of people at all. Certain elements of London have turned their back on Victoria's project and found Eleutheria much more to their liking. But yeah, there is a kind of real kind of... I think the difference for Eleutherians will find with the Blue Kingdom as well as the judgments are still active. This is as they were before kind of London intruded on them, whereas kind of London and the Reach are empty, forgiven value of empty, when London comes through with its empire and starts setting up. And I think it's useful to think of it in a way that Albion and all the walls and the barriers it sets up, it's to keep Eleutheria and the Blue Kingdom out. It's kind of, this is what we are, this is what we are not.
Yeah. So presumably once players get to experience what Albion is like, that will probably help clarify not only what Albion feels like, obviously, but how the whole world setup is arranged accordingly.
Yeah. I think the more you discover, the kind of more everything starts to fit together and make sense. I mean, that's true of both the player's experience and ours as well. The more kind of we dig and kind of go, well, we've established this in the Reach. Where's that come from? We need to flesh this out. And then it's kind of symbiotic. You can think, well, then if we now know this exists, at some point we'll have to filter it back in, or there's a story that could be told here, or a new angle that could be put on. Something we've already established.
Yeah, I think when Paul was on here not too long ago, we explained that Albion was actually the first region that we thought about or designed the most, because that's what was used in the Kickstarter for a lot of the examples, particularly obviously the art that Paul was doing. So for us, we started there as opposed to the Reach, whereas players have started in the Reach.
Yeah, I think that was massively useful, even if it was sort of slightly unintentional, because it was useful to have kind of, well, we know what the Reach isn't, as well we know what needs to be offset against and feel different to.
Definitely. Would you guys have any more? Would you have any more questions? We are a bit over time, but it's always just easy to sit and chat, especially with our pumpkin jack-o'-lantern friend and the lovely Halloween decorations, which I hope will stay for quite a while. Although our Christmas tree also is quite spooky.
Yeah, that's full of bats, isn't it?
Yes, and mushrooms as well, which is always a nice touch.
We have our Christmas plant over there, which should have died 2 years ago.
You're a plant necromancer. Yes, no. The delay always gets me. It's very strange. But sounds like there's no more questions.
Listen, I've explained everything there. Chris is about to. Oh.
You don't necessarily have to answer this one if it's
I mean, they're very, very present, and I can't imagine that they won't be a big deal when you encounter them. As for Hallowmas, it's definitely referenced.
Ooh, I did not know that. That's exciting. I'm also just imagining the art brief that Paul would get in that case, which makes me smile. Because I think there was an instance, I forget which part of Eleutheria that we're talking about, but Chris made a note for an art group and then was like, that's going to be a difficult one.
I've regularly left kind of notes for art groups, people just saying sorry. Small brackets.
Well, they've done amazing so far, so.
Yes.
But I definitely can't wait to see some of these new regions since we're quite familiar with Albion and the Reach. So it'll be very interesting to see how they portray things like that. Just as much for us as for you guys. Cool. So I think we will wrap it up. You can always send us your questions on Twitter or Tumblr or anything as well, and we will do our best to answer them. But don't forget to check out the sprint vlogs that we do every other week because they're practical information of what we've been working on. And of course, this will be posted so you guys can watch it afterwards as well. But hopefully Lottie is trigger ready. Cool. Thanks, James, for coming on again.
Thank you.
And explaining about all the things that will give me nightmares today.
You're welcome.
Bye, guys.
See you.